Grieve. Hello, it's Una from theharpteacher.com. So I find that it's very useful to know the names for the different parts of my harp. So I'm going to go through that with you right now. There's a couple of different terms for each part, so hopefully you will feel extremely informed and totally ready to begin your career as a harpist after this. So the first part we're going to start with is this. Okay, so as you can see, this is, if you will, the front part of the triangle of the harp. See how it just goes from the very top down to the bottom? And the most common name for this is the column. Another name for it is the pillar. Another name for it is the forepillar or front pillar. And then in Irish, we call it the lámhchán. Okay? This part here, right? The back part of the triangle, if you will, from the very tip down to the bottom, is called the sound box, or another name for it is the body. In Irish, we call it an com. This next part of the harp is actually my favourite part. It's this area. It's the top line of the triangle of the harp, if you will. And we call this the neck, or a variation on that, the curving neck, or the harmonic curve. And in Irish, we call it pretty much a direct translation of the neck, an bhuin. The harmonic curve is the title for the whole shebang going on here. But sometimes, if you want to be precise, this section here has the very curious name of the knee block. Another word for it is the shoulder, which to me makes more sense because, of course, the shoulder goes on your shoulder. And then in Irish, that would be gula. So the next part is the funky part, the one that's going to make you sound like a drummer or like some sort of cool Latin percussionist if you choose to do rhythms. So this part of the harp is the front of the sound box, and we call it the soundboard, or the sounding board, or the harmonic table. And in Irish, it's called the fumchlór. The next part I'm going to show you is the little legs. Do you see the little legs of my harp? There we go. It's kind of self-explanatory. I like to say to all my students when their legs are akimbo and askew, cussa, cussa, cussa. And cussa is the Irish word for legs, or feet more accurately. And yeah, it's a great word. That could be your word for the day. So now we're back to the harmonic curve. Okay, can you remember one of the other names for that? Neck, an bhuin, that's it. And we're going to take a closer look. So you'll see a couple of things going on. First of all, we're going to look at the top line. You'll see all of these little pins up at the very top, and they are called tuning pins. And it pretty much does what it says on the tin. You wrap a string around a tuning pin. The tuning pin goes through the harmonic curve, giving it its other name, a through pin, and then it comes out the other side. So here's a view from the top of the harp, and you can see the tuning pin right here on its string side, and then it goes through the harp, giving it the other name, the through pin, and it comes out on the other side. Ta-da! Now, what is very exciting is that there is another type of pin on the harmonic curve. Let's take a closer look, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to bring you closer. And you can see that I have my harmonic curve here. I have my tuning pin here, and then beneath that there's this brass pin. Can you see that? That is called a resting pin, or a bridge pin, or in Irish a buran taka. And the function of that is simply to put the string at a particular angle so that it will go into this sharpening lever correctly. So now we're going to talk about possibly one of the most exciting things of all, and that is sharpening levers. So I am going to bring you to this string, okay? It's a G, right? Sounds like this, G. Now, see this little string, lever, which is covered in pink? I'm gonna raise that. And now when I pluck that exact same string, the G, it sounds like this. Before it sounded like this, now it sounds like this, G sharp. So what happens is a sharpening lever shortens the string so that the pitch of the string is raised by 1 semitone or 1/2 step. So now you've discovered the mystery of the sharpening lever. We're going to look at these things. Not very difficult to guess what they're called since I've been talking about them for the last couple of minutes. They are the strings, okay? But what is at the other end of the strings? Well, let's look. The string, right, enters the harp by way of a little hole in this raised ridge of wood, and that is called either a string hole, very logical, or it's called an eyelet, or in Irish, a suil. or in plural, nasula. So now how about we go under the hood, if you will. So as you can see, this is the back of the sound box, right? Hopefully you can see there, ta-da-da-da, there is a hole in it. And this has the very technological name of hole. There's no special term for it. There's just a hole in the back of your sound box. So then you can put your hand in and get access to your strings and then replace your strings as necessary. Now, also on the back of my harp is the thing I get asked about most. And that is this little pocket here. So this is actually just made of leather and it's not part of the structure of my harp whatsoever. It's totally detachable, okay? And in it, I just open up the little pocket and there is dum dum bum bum bam, a tuning key. So this is just a type of little Allen key which I can attach the tuning pins and that way make the strings sharp or flat. I'll show you how to do that in a different video. And then while I'm at it, I just want to point out one tiny little trick of the trade, okay? So I figured this one out myself, and basically every so often I have a gig where I have to memorize a couple of tunes in a row. So like a set list basically. And there's a great way to avoid that job. All I do is I write out the names of the tunes and the first few notes. And then I type them into my computer. I make them into like a very small font size, like font size 10, for example. And then I print it out. And then I cut it up into a little rectangle and I tape it into the back of my soundbox. Can you see that? Yeah. So that way, you know, if I get a little unsure about what's next or if I can't remember the first few notes of a tune, I just have a quick little look, all is well. So very quickly, I just want to show you one other important thing under the hood, and that is this plate that's at the bottom of the harp, okay? So that's called the base plate. And it's just really important to make sure when you're buying a harp that there's no cracks or problems with that, because it's one of the most important structural elements of the harp. So there's just one more thing to show you before we go on to our next tutorial. This, very simple, is a string or a tade. And sometimes when you put a string in the harp, you need to put one or two things at the bottom to stabilize it and to make sure it doesn't slip through this thing here, which is called a string hole or eyelet or sewel, okay? So what we can do is we put a knot in the bottom of the string and then we stick a little stick through it. And the word for this stick is really cool. It's spline, S-P-L-I-N-E, or in Irish, it's just simply the word for stick, bata, or in French, again, the word for stick, barrette. And then sometimes to add that, we get a little bit of foam or leather and we use it as a kind of a washer to jar between the knot and the sound box to make sure that there's no friction and therefore no buzz. And that is it. That is your final piece of terminology on the Neo-Irish harp or the lever harp or the Celtic harp or whatever you want to call it. So I think a really useful next step for you would be learning the names of the strings. So if you go to theharpteacher.com, you will find cool resources on many different aspects of learning the harp, and also you will find that next tutorial on the names of the strings. It's loads of fun. I thoroughly recommend it. So I wish you the very best of luck with your harp journey, and mahou on completing your tutorial on the anatomy of the harp.